Despite corruption scandals and poor performance, the ANC has managed to hold on to power for nearly 3 decades. In his newly released book, political analyst Dr. Ralph Mathekga notes that for those decades, the party has held South Africa's politics with an iron grip. With the party seemingly at war with itself and President Ramaphosa battling to rein in those corrupt or accused of corruption, Dr. Mathekga predicts that the ANC will fall below the critical 50% threshold before the end of the decade. So the decline of the ANC could bring political reform, but also uncertainty. If the ANC loses power, who will be in charge? Who and what will come after the ANC, if at all? And how does this affect South Africa? Let's chat a bit about this. Dr. Ralph Mathekga, political analyst and author of the ANC's Last Decade, joins me now live. Dr. Mathekga, great to see you once again. Thanks indeed for joining us on the program. I'm really glad to be speaking to you just a day after this crucial Constitutional Court decision to go ahead with the election. Your book is about the ANC, but what a political conundrum that we find ourselves in, because it seems the party might be the biggest loser due to what has been going on, of course, registration of those candidates.
Good evening, Griselda, and good evening to your viewers at home. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. Indeed, things turned up quite unexpected for the ANC. I mean, the ANC has been banking and relying on the possibility that the court was going to agree to the postponement of the election. So you could see that in terms of their preparation, they've been thinking that actually the whole registration of candidates will be reopened as a new cycle will be announced had the court decided to postpone this election. Things did not go out in the same way. They are not registered in about 93 municipalities, and the court actually said that we need to go ahead with the election. I mean, I have never been in favor of postponing the election, Griselda, because I believe that the right to vote is very critical. And if you look at the current mandate, the near collapse of the state of local government is just morally questionable to make a case that one need to extend the mandate of the current term, even under conditions such as that of the COVID-19. So the ANC is going to be the biggest loser out of this. It would have been fair, though, had ANC voters been given an opportunity to reject the party at the ballot, but not to find the party at the ballot altogether. That just goes to the core of the depth of the problem within the ANC, Kusat.
And Dr. Mathekga, interestingly, in your book, you reflect on a future where the ANC, seemingly at war with itself, no longer holds that tight grip on power and will fall below the 50% threshold before the end of the decade. Is this something that could potentially be experienced in South Africa's democratic history? Is there a future without the African National Congress at the helm?
Certainly, there is such a future, Griselda, and I'll tell you how I project it happening. We are not going to wake up one day with South Africa without the ANC altogether. But what is happening is that the ANC is gradually losing grip of power. Its electoral mandate is becoming weaker and weaker. In the previous elections, general, provincial, and national elections, for the first time, the ANC dipped below 60%, and they've been losing 3% election on election. If you look at where they are now, the extent of the division, what I call the irreversible differences, nearly irreconcilable differences between the factions, the challenge is that they are not going to come out coherent. So they are headed there, and it might even be quicker. I mean, if you can lose out of just not participating in 93 municipalities, that's almost 1/3 of South Africa's 257 or so municipalities. This could come even quicker than one could have projected, actually.
You also note, that the ANC is losing support in urban centres. The question that refuses to go away is whether it is, on its way, to becoming a rural party. The ANC becoming a more regionalised party also has implications for how the party reconfigures itself at central leadership level. Elaborate on this observation for us a bit.
Yes, that's an interesting point for me, Griselda, because I have to think about the future of South Africa's democracy, how it looks like. And as a political analyst, my understanding is that every democracy ends up being decentralized, particularly an open competitive democracy. The ANC has never actually favored decentralization. When they negotiated for transition to South Africa, they wanted a strong unitary government with very weaker federalism. You can call it weaker federalism in a sense that you accept national government, that is your provincial and your local government. It's almost subservient or almost dependent a lot on national government. There isn't that much autonomy. But that was fine and understandable, Griselda, given that we came from apartheid. We didn't want to have a country that's made of different ethnic groups. But I think as I observe South Africa's democracy evolving now, South Africa is becoming more and more regionalized. I think that someone who wants to win the province of Mpumalanga in the near future also might need a different strategy than you need to win the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, and so forth. For me, it says that the ANC at regional level is going to adapt, and the national leadership of the ANC is going to become weaker and weaker structurally as time goes by. No matter how much discipline they will try to exert at the regions are bound to be autonomous. The question I also lay out there is, I do believe there is an opportunity for democratization, because in our experience of centralized ANC, we have seen controversial decisions being made. However, I think the ANC that has got a sense of constituency in a particular region might need to listen to their constituencies to survive. I think this will happen whether or not the party likes it. They cannot stop the process of decentralization of power in South Africa.
Dr. Mathekga, I mean, when you note that this is the ANC's last decade in the political climate we are in, who do you foresee taking the helm? I mean, would it be one dominant party or alliances coming and working together? I mean, we have a history of failed alliances in this country. How do you see that political landscape changing?
I mean, this is quite a mind-boggling question, because, you know, Griselda, we are used to having a single center of power, a single center of decisions. That is why quite often when people hear that the ANC is losing its hegemony, it's no longer that single center of power, because I believe there are multiple centers of power. The question that often comes out is who is going to be in charge? My view is that it will no longer be interesting, actually, who is in charge, because I think that whoever will be in charge will be governing through such a weak mandate that you are going to need coalition around issues. Even if the ANC itself comes out in the next election with 52% or 53%, the reality will be that it will need to canvass on issues. They will need to discuss issues with other political parties before they can pass some of the critical policy, I would say, directive, even in parliament and even in terms of execution. So that politics where you have a single where the power comes out, I think it's all gone. South Africa is becoming a fragmented society, and I don't think there is anything tragic about that, Griselda. I think it's a normal evolution of democracy.
Dr. Ralph Mathekga, always a pleasure speaking to you on the program. Political analyst and author of the ANC's last decade. Thank you very much for joining us here on The Full View on